G'day guys, Gordon at Blue Tongue Industries. Today we're going to be myth busters. Well, I'm not actually going to break a myth or tell a myth, but I'm going to show you different ways, and I see it pop up in forums on tips and tricks with wrapping a hose reel. So whether you're dealing with 15, 20, 30, 50, 60, 100 meters of pressure cleaning hose, there's so many different types of hose reels, and that initial attachment to a hose reel can be daunting if you don't have the right fittings, or when you go to wrap the hose reel can be awkward with that initial first few winds onto that drum of that hose reel. So let's run you through it step by step. So what I'm going to sort of say today, it's only my 5 cents worth. So whether you're dealing with black rapid reels of this particular nature, and they come in 60s, 20s, 30s, 15s, all different configurations, stainless, black powder coated, but I just wanted to share with you what we've learned and the way we actually hook things up here at Blue Tongue Industries. And if you like this video, do check out all our other videos on this YouTube channel, which is Blue Tongue Industries on the YouTube, and I'll drop links below on different parts that I'm going to talk about today with setting up these reels and hose on reels. So when we initially wrap our hose on a reel with these black rapid reels, and we can see here on this particular SoftWash trolley, we have thermoplastic hose. So this thermoplastic hose is very flexible, and coming out of this particular swivel, we've got quite a tight bend, and depending whether we're using thermoplastic or double wire reinforced hose, sometimes we can't pull a bend that tight. On a SoftWash reel with the thermoplastic, it's quite possible, and we've used a 3/8 to 3/8 male adapter to screw the swivel part of the female hose onto that adapter, and between the adapter and the swivel we've got a Doughty seal. So thermoplastic hose can sit and lay a bit different, and you can see the circumference of that hose run around the reel and picked up on the Adele P clamp to secure that in position. But when we start dealing with wire reinforced hose, the memory of the hose is quite rigid and requires a few other bits and pieces to make that hose run right. So all hose reels will have a swivel, and what I'm talking about here today we can also throw back at SoftWash hose reels and hose reels alike. So swivels, most swivels on a pressure cleaning hose reel will be 3/8 thread. So in this case we've got female 3/8 thread, and that will relate to a majority of these hose reels. The rapid reels in the larger range can be double stacked, and there's a double stacker kit up there, and as I said before, they come in a heap of different sizes. So this is a 60 meter rapid reel which can be mounted to the floor or double stacked. There's also hose guide kits where we can have double hose guides out the front, but I just wanted to show you how we initially hook up the hose to the 60 meter hose reel. So there's no right or wrong whether we're going to use female or male. My personal preference is male into the swivel. So when we initially feed the hose through, and the hose will pick up on the Adele clamp like that and be wrapped around the hose reel, and this is just a short little whip hose that I'm demonstrating here today. The circumference of that hose is quite tight and will pick up on that P clamp, so we've pulled quite a tight bend on that hose assembly. The handle will stick out here, which will enable us to wind. But to be able to do up the fixed male end without rotating the hose becomes a bit impossible. So we like to use a swivel assembly. So it's a 3/8 male female, and all these will be Loctited into the corresponding parts. On this particular swivel, we're actually going to pick up on the flare. So between the swivel and the end of the hose, we don't require thread tape or Loctite. We're going to use the mating flange of the flare to seal the hose. So we'll screw in the swivel which will be 3/8, which will be Loctited into the receptacle, which is another swivel. That would then allow us to connect the hose, which is going to be quite tight. And we could then manipulate that hose into place by doing up that counter nut on the swivel. And you can see that the flex in the hose, and to get that hose to sit flush, we are applying quite a bit of force to get that initially started. And once we overcome all that, we're able to run that hose quite tightly around the drum of this particular 60-metre rapid reel. So that's one particular method of initially wrapping the hose. It is pulling quite tight, and personally on a double wrapped wire reinforced hose, we are probably putting a little bit of strain on that swage fitting. So I just wanted to show you another method where we can attach the hose to the swivel. So what I've actually set up here is my preferred method. So we'd have a handle assembly sticking out here, but I've added a simple 90-degree elbow. So that elbow, male, female, 3/8 will screw into the swivel. We have our additional swivel screwed into the elbow, and that's going to allow us, being a swivel, to do up the reciprocating nut on the male part of the hose. And with the flex of that hose, I believe that it is a reduced bend radius and less strain on that hose by just simply adding the 90-degree bend. And this is my preferred method on attaching a hose to a black rapid reel. So tip 1, simple, no right or wrong, just my 5 cents worth. Let's move on to the next one. So just to go over the different hoses, so when we look at this particular hose reel, we'll see that the swivel assembly is similar to our 60-metre. So we'll use a similar technique with wrapping hose onto this hose reel. This particular hose reel comes with what we call a built-in whip line, which will go back to the pressure cleaner, whereas the larger hose reels don't. And I wanted to show you on the black rapid reel, to set these up, we need a 1/2" to 3/8 adapter. So this is an absolute must when you're setting up these larger reels, where we're going to adapt it back to from 1/2" to 3/8. But on that particular adapter as well, rather than have the hose coming straight out, we like to tie it up. So when we do use the adapter, 1/2" to 3/8, we often put an elbow on that adapter so that when we attach the hose going back to the pressure cleaner, we can run that a little bit neater. So that's another little tip and trick. I just wanted to also show you what a Doughty seal was. So these Doughty seals are a crushed aluminium with an inserted O-ring, and these are great, fantastic when we're not securing a pressure cleaning fitting on a flare. And just to recap the flare, when we look at the end of the hose, the flare fitting there would seal against the reciprocating flare there without using Loctite or thread seal. But when we're attaching two parallel threads like this, even though that has a flare to take a hose, but we're not screwing into a reciprocating flare on the elbow, we can use the Doughty seal. So we'd still Loctite the two together, but the Doughty seal will give us an additional sealing technique when we do those two up. So those Doughty seals are quite cheap and great to have in the kit when we're doing up sort of parallel thread like that. So putting that on there will be a neat connection running back to our pressure cleaner. Second tip. Okay, this is the good old A-frame, one of our favourites. So it can come in a generic version, can also come in a GP version where we have a gear around the outside, electric motor, and a controller for a 12-volt auto rewind through a controller. On a manual version like this, we can put, or both versions, we can have hose guide assembly kits where we can have rollers top and bottom and on the side. But the dilemma with these particular reels is when we wrap a hose and the center part of the manifold is 3/8, comes with an adapter. When we attach the hose, the initial first few winds on the hose, due to the tight circumference, often gives us quite a large bend on the hose. And we often see guys ask, how do we overcome that to reduce that bend radius and allow a neat wind of the hose around that drum? So that can often stick out quite a lot. So I just wanted to show you what you can do to get that hose to lay flatter and not put undue pressure on that hose as we wrap it around that drum and have a neat wind up. So coming out of the center manifold, there's an adapter here, 1/2 inch to 3/8. But another point that I'll make too is if you're running long lengths of hose, and what we used to do was, you know, on a bad day, if we were doing some graffiti work, we could have, 150, 200 metres of hose running into the scrub to do a retaining wall or there alike. Sometimes setting up a disconnect point here, if you had to fill up and go and get water, is a good tip and trick too. So rather than winding up that extended length of hose, even if it's 60 metres and you're moving around a property or a commercial, residential commercial property, or if you've got to move a vehicle and you've got your hose out, rather than winding the whole hose back in to move the vehicle, having a disconnect point here so you can disconnect the hose off the reel, dump the hose to the ground and then move the vehicle is something else which is quite handy. But I just wanted to show you how I wanted to set this up to reduce the bend radius. So this is the dilemma. Big bend radius. We wrap it around. How do we overcome that with the initial few winds to lay flat the hose? Let's take two. So I have added a couple extra fittings which you'll see, but even with making this video, so I suppose the manufacturing technique and their jigs on particular hose reels vary. So I've actually got two swivels in here. I initially, a few minutes ago, just prior to recording this, I actually set up with one swivel and found with my elbow fitting, it still wasn't laying flat. So I've doubled up on swivels. Does look a little bit messy, but they're all going to be Loctited in, secured in, and once pressurised and leak tested, it shouldn't be a hassle going forward. But having the two swivels to extend this manifold out allows this hose now to lay flat, and if that's wrapped all the way around, there's going to be no big bulges and you'll get a nice wrap on that particular hose. So bit of an overview, a bit of a compromise there of adding the two swivels. Usually we can just get away with one, and you may get away with one. You may be happy with the bend radius coming out of just that single swivel where I've used the two. The one may be enough to give you that bend radius and allow you to wrap that hose reel the way you like it. Hope this has been a bit of a overview on hoses and reels. It's often a bit of a daunting task hooking up the reel on the extremity of the hose. Being female, we'll often put a Mosmatic Swivel or something similar rated to the machine, whether that's 4,000 or I think 7,300 PSI rated. Then that's going on to whether we've got 3/8 quick connects or M22 to plug into your different guns and accessories. Once again, Gordon at Blue Tongue Industries. I hope you've got a little bit from this video, and any questions, do come back to us. Check out everything on our web, and we'll catch you on the next video, guys. Thanks.